So, a couple of days ago, I talked about a very specific thing when it came to credit repair. The first thing we talked about was the dangers of using unethical gray area strategies. Some of you guys may have agreed, some of you guys may have disagreed, but the terms of the structures are still the same. They may be harmful to you long term. So, let me tell you something. When it comes to credit repair, you have to use strategies that are defined in a way that gives you long term benefit. I just spoke with somebody who's looking for direction, and they asked me one simple question. The question was, hey, here's my situation. I got debts that I got to pay. But before I continue on my credit repair journey, whether I do a sweep or whether I do a regular process, what's the first step that I need to take? Why do I have to do it that way? And what's going to be my outcome and benefits for doing it? So let me give you some light into how you can execute a successful credit repair campaign. But before we do that, I think the first thing we need to address is the dangers of not looking at certain situations and creditors and handling the issues with them first, right? So what happens is a lot of people get these accounts on their credit report and then they just ignore it, and then they hope that they can do credit repair down the road just by simply ignoring the phone calls or letters from these creditors and collection agencies. But what ends up happening is, even if you do credit repair on your profile, even if you do credit repair on a very successful level, nobody's stopping from another negative account or negative collection agency picking up that account and reporting it. Are you going to continue that cycle, that dead wheel, continue, and fight out all those collection agencies? Or are you going to find something that's legitimate and something that's going to last you long term? So let me give you some light into this video and why I wanted to create this for you, so that you can understand the benefits of handling stuff with your creditors directly first. And then we can talk about how to fix your credit step by step, while removing the negatives and adding positive accounts and adjusting the existing ones that you already have. Let's roll out the intro. You see, credit is such a sensitive topic. If you don't do it the right way, you're going to put yourself in a lot of trouble. So my guidance to you in this video is to really give you some direction and discretion as to how to handle some of these credit accounts. What are some of the things that you can do to avoid some pitfalls, which include items or accounts being sold off to third parties that are basically going to come after you anyways? And what are some of the things you can do directly to conversate and communicate or even negotiate with some existing creditors so that you get the best outcome when it comes to your credit repair journey? First thing we got to address is the idea that you don't have to worry about paying your existing debts or balances that you have in your credit reports. And that's the biggest misconception and misleading tactic that a lot of people teach you. Let's go over some of the 3 reasons as to why you should definitely pay attention to the accounts and balances that you have, instead of ignoring them and waiting for another person or company to pick up that debt and basically surcharge you and all these type of things and add more negatives to your account on your credit reports. So the first thing is obviously is because you have a better chance of removing the negatives from ever reappearing or coming back with a different name or an account if you deal directly with the creditor. And what I mean by that is, think about things that you can do right away to communicate with the creditor and ask them, hey, look, I'm willing to work with you. I just don't have a lot of funds. Because a lot of these situations come from the ability of, basically miscalculated income or borrowing more than you can chew. And I think that if you work with creditors directly, stall the negative reports and all these type of things that they can do to harm you on your credit level, there's a chance to work it out. So that's the first thing. If you work with your creditor, there's a chance they'll pick up the phone, and you have to just constantly communicate with them in reference to where you're positioned at. I talked about late payments a couple of videos ago, and here's one thing I recommended. I said, look, if you got late payments and you know for a fact that you're going to be late a couple of days down the road, and you're just about to, fall for that, and basically what you're going to do is you're going to try to make up for it down the road by catching up with your payment, it doesn't really help you. Here's the problem. It's because, let's say if you do get that late payment, and even though you have let's say out of the 24 months, you have 23 months of good payment history, that 1 month is going to hinder your ability to borrow credit. So the reason why you want to work with creditors is because they're the ones that can help you. If you tell them, hey, look, I'm going to miss my payment, I don't know if I can able to make it. I just wanted to give you guys a call and a heads up. If we can do something to stall that and basically add it to my next bill, that'd be great. So what happens is sometimes what they do is they don't even report it to the credit reporting agency, even if you're 60 days. And what happens is they're willing to work with you. But here's the tactic. You have to call them. You have to communicate with your original creditor. So that's point number 1 on why you need to pay attention to your existing debts and credit and balances. Number 2, if you ignore them and if you ignore any type of balances outstanding or owing, they can be sold to a third-party collection agency. They can be sold to an attorney or a law firm that can handle that as a collection account. And what happens then is they have the ability to freely remove debt from their books, which is they can sell it to another company, they can post a negative on your credit, all these type of things. You can do all the debt validation you want. You can dispute and challenge it all you want. But if they say, okay, no problem, we're not going to take care of this anymore, we'll hand it to somebody else, we'll ceasing collection activity. What if they continue doing that cycle for 12 months straight with 12 different companies? Are you gonna constantly dispute your credit for 12 different months? Continue that cycle of a deadbeat for 12 different months? What if you need financing in 3 months? Are you gonna continue fighting them for 12 months? So you see the math doesn't really add up. So it's a very critical process that you consider looking at the existing account, the existing creditors, and try to figure things out right there, right then with them. Okay, because if you don't, like I said, number two is they can sell it and constantly keep you running and under loop, and that's going to be a very painful process just to get rid of those bad boys and these negatives. So that's point number two. The third point where you need to handle things with your creditors and making sure that you're handling it directly with them instead of waiting on not paying them so it goes into a charge-off status, which is in the eventual time goes into a collection, is because you want to make sure that your credit history and your ability to perform with that creditor remains intact. And the reason why, it's because credit reports can show one thing, okay? Credit reports can say, hey, look, here's the way the client is. And if you dispute and challenge that and you remove it from a credit report, a lot of people think, oh, that's great, I can go and apply. The biggest thing that people don't consider is behind the credit reporting agency, there's an internal database. Behind the credit reporting agency, there's other data repositories about you as a customer in terms of your risk. LexisNexis provides that database, whether on a credit reporting disclosure or not. ChexSystems looks into your banking records and everything. You can challenge, dispute it all you want, but the fact of the matter is those institutions are interconnected. And the biggest thing you can do for yourself is if you don't handle those accounts internally with creditors first, you become a high profile risk. And even let's say if you borrow little amounts, let's say a couple $1,000s or whatever, it's still a risk as a client and a consumer, and it red flags you, and it red flags your account, and it red flags your ability to borrow in the future, regardless how pristine or good your credit may look. So those are some of the considerations that you need to make when it comes to borrowing and leveraging credit. So with that said, those are the three reasons I believe strongly that you should start negotiating and working with your existing creditors prior to moving on to, let's say, in another tactic of credit repair or trying to do the gray area stuff that I warned you guys about. Let's move on to the topic of what to do to fix your credit so that you can take it step by step on improving, adding those negative accounts, removing those negative accounts, adding the positive ones, and working with your existing creditors to improve the existing relationships that you have and how those can help you enhance your report for the better so that you have some long-term scores that are going to last and some long-term relationships that are going to to turn into good outcomes for you when it comes to borrowing down the road. Now we're moving on to the second point of helping yourself in your credit journey, and that's fixing your negatives, removing those negative accounts. The biggest thing, like I said, and I always emphasize this on like so many different times, and I push you guys for that, is do the PI minimizer technique. It's such a powerful tool. You get great outcomes, okay? You really get great outcomes. What you want to do is remove all the personal details that are extra excessive, unrelated to you at this moment, and try to start with that. Once you get the outcome from that, it's a very good start to your next step and the next step after that. And the reason why you want to remove personal information using the PI minimizer technique is because it really hurts you and your ability to borrow or try to fight those negative accounts. If you have evidence from a credit reporting agency that, hey, look, I removed all those list of names and addresses and personal data, here's proof that we removed it, what else do you need from us? It's a first step to a positive direction, right? It's a first step because the credit reporting agency have decided to take that information and remove it for you, right? And that means that they're open to looking at all the negatives that you have in your credit report and seeing what are some of the things they can do to fix that. What are some of the things they can do to remove those excessive debt weights that are potentially linked to the personal information that was just removed. So that's why the PI minimizer technique is such a critical part of your credit repair journey. A lot of people think that you can get shortcuts in 7 days, 30 days, 45 days. And the reality is that time frame is actually the necessary time frame or the absolute crucial and essential time frame to remove your personal identifiers. If you don't start with that, the rest of the information that you remove can come back. And the reason they're going to come back is that at a later date, they can be re-verified. But when you start your process with personal identifiers and you challenge it that way, what happens? What happens is you basically tell the credit reporting agency that, hey, look, this is not mine. This information should be removed. And once it's removed, then all the negative accounts that are following that are challenged and questioned automatically. And which means that they can't go back on their word and you lock that in. You lock that confirmation in. And that's the biggest and safest way for you to ensure that when you're finding out those negatives, you have a process you can follow and something that's reliable and it's confirmed by the credit reporting agency. That confirmation is your PI minimizer technique. It's to remove those personal details in a way that helps you move forward with your credit repair journey on a very progressive level. So that's the steps on removing those negative items. Next, let's talk about some of the things you can do with your existing creditors today by calling them up or even inquiring on the existing accounts on how you can enhance it, tweak it to make it look even more attractive when it comes to your credit report, and some of the tips and strategies that you can deploy today to get those benefits. Okay, so far we've handled the negative stuff with the existing creditors. Give ourselves some chance, some leeway to work with, so we have a chance to redeem ourselves, to work with those existing creditors, so we can keep our relationship solid, so down the road we can use them. We talked about how to remove your negatives, starting with the PI minimizer technique and then leading on from that. Now we're going to talk about the existing strategies that you can deploy immediately with your existing creditors to enhance your credit reports. The first thing I want you to look at is the history with those creditors, right? Their history comprises of many things. Number one, it comprises of your payment history with them. Are you on time with them when you borrow? Have you ever defaulted on a payment? Have you ever been late 60, 30 days? Or if you're always on time, and what are your balances typically around that credit? So let's say some creditors, you might have $5,000 limit and your balance is always floating around, $4,000. And if you looked at my video about the FICO 10 and the FICO 10T, we talk about trends. And that could actually be a very dangerous thing for you to carry balances like that all around with a certain couple of months, at least leading on. So the biggest objective, I think, with your existing creditor is to work towards paying down the balances on an aggressive level based on your capacity. I don't want you to go borrow more money from some other people or institution and try to pay that off, because at the end of the day, it's still another institution or another person. What I'm saying is, within your means and capacity, work on existing debts and try to pay those down, because what's going to happen is it's going to help you improve your credit score long term, because of the FICO 10T, the trends model. Not only that, you're solidifying your relationship with your existing creditor, which means down the road, if you're going to go ask for money, or if you're going to go ask for, to borrow or to leverage, they will work in your favor, because they'll look at the trends, they'll look at the history, they'll look at your minimum payments being respected or even above the minimum payments being respected. And they'll potentially do two things. Number one, give you more of what you have, which is limits, which helps your utilization, right? Because if you can improve your limits, what does that mean? The utilization plays a key role on your credit scoring model. So if you have a higher utilization and the debt to utilization ratio, what it means your score is going to go up. Doesn't that mean that your score? Yeah, of course, because it's a good percentage. Now, number two, it's because you're always on time, you're paying more than what you're supposed to, because we're looking at the balances carried. Now, the monthly payment amount, it's going to be respected, and on top of that, it's going to help you in your scoring factor, because that's 35% of your credit score. So you're doing two things at the same time. You got to tweak that, right? So once you do these type of things, once you have these things going, the next obvious step after paying some of the balances down, making sure that you're working with your balances to keep it below a certain percentage, as well as maintaining those minimum and above payments. The next step is to talk to your creditor and ask them if they have any promotions going on in terms of extending credit to you. And the reason I say you want to ask for a promotion is because you don't want to ask for a limit increase when they can actually pull your credit. The number of times you pull your credit, the more desperate it looks with financial institutions that you're going to potentially borrow from, or in the credit reporting side. So what you can do is simply ask them, hey, look, I need a credit extension based on a promotion you have going on. I've been on time. You got history there. You're showing that you paid your balances above and beyond the minimum. You maintain a solid credit history with these guys, and your balances are carrying very nicely. What are some of the things they can do for you in that context of the relationship you have going? So that's the first step I want you guys to really pay attention to and really tackle it in that angle. So with all that said, number one, we talked about, maintain your existing relationship. Work with your creditor if you're going to miss your payments, or if you have balances that you're carrying, instead of letting that go into a collection account, which is going to be an endless cycle of a deadbeat race, because you're going to always try to fight those collectors off. The second thing I talked about is maintain your existing accounts and ensure that you're doing it in a way that looks progressive. We also talked about, how to remove those negatives. Start with your PI minimizer technique. One of the most powerful tactics that I teach in credit repair and execute for my customers as well on a more enhanced level, which you can learn with the Ultimate Personal Credit Mastery 2.0. The link is in the description of this video. So with that said, we've continued on to improving your existing relationship with your creditors and why it's such a critical part on your credit repair journey, and what are some of the things that will help you because of the FICO 10 and the FICO 10T trends in terms of keeping your balances below a certain level. With all that said, I hope that you guys can appreciate the information that I share for you. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new to this channel. Turn that bell icon on so every time there's a video like this, you'll be first to be notified. And with that said, this is your guide and mentor, Ali Taraftar. See you in the next one. Bye for now.